I think we're live. Hey, Alex, super happy to have you as a host on or as a guest on the Dungeon Data Risk webinar. So why don't we just start with some intros, Alex? How'd you get into the space? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Ganesh, and super excited about this data-based hackathon because we never have enough data analytics. So actually, I'm the risk manager at Aave, and so my background is risk and analytics. I'm a actuary at the Faculty and Institute of Actuary here in the UK. And so basically an actuary is a specialist of risk quantification and working especially in the insurance industry. And that's how I started my career. For 5 years, I worked for different insurance companies, reinsurance, and also like insurance portfolio aggregators. And so that's quite interesting because you're projecting the asset risks and also the liability risks. So at Aave, we have quite a lot of asset risk mostly, and it's the asset risk is both on the asset side, but also the liabilities, the borrows. It's also there's also a lot of market risk there. So during my 5 years in the insurance space, I was really frustrated by the inefficiencies of the traditional industry and the way, in traditional finance now, you kind of have to deal with really old infrastructures with databases built on top of each other that are not necessarily compatible or efficient. And I was spending so much time reconciliating data from like different departments, and it was quite frustrating. And so when I started going to InsurTech conferences and seeing some startups experimenting with blockchain as a database system, those were still private blockchains at the time. And I got really excited about it because, it solved, it solved so much of the friction of the industry. It saved all the wasted time. It saved operational risk because that's also the problem when you have to do a lot of manual operations. You make mistakes, or you can make mistakes. So that's how I started really getting interested. And then I discovered public blockchains. And so then that completely blew my mind. And within 6 months of discovering public blockchains in 2017, at the end of the year, I quit my job. And from 2018, I decided to, build financial services for everyone and to dedicate myself to, making the future a better place.
Awesome. Probably, maybe in hindsight, maybe not the best time to enter the crypto industry during the bear market. What are your thoughts on that? Like, when is a good time? Bear market, bull market? Obviously, the bull market right now is crazy. What are your thoughts? Like, when is a good time to enter?
I think it was definitely as I stopped working, basically, the market totally crashed. So, it was thankfully, it never really questioned my decision because, bear market, bull markets, I never stopped being a believer. I think bear markets, I would say it's actually quite a good time to start working in the space because you have the time to study. There's less thing going on. So here, after 3 years in the space, I think, I'm starting to be an expert, but, still I don't understand everything. And still I don't have time to keep up with everything that's going on. But if you don't even have those 3 years and you're trying to learn as you go, I don't know how people do it in the bull market. You need to kind of focus yourself on specific areas or specific projects you really want to understand.
Yeah, so I actually think the same. We started at the end of 2017. So we've had 2.5 years of bear market, no real traction, nothing of that sort. So we just were heads down building product. And this is why we have one of the best products in this space today, because we've just been focused on things that eventually matter. And the bull market is here, our traction is going through the roof, but we're ready for that, right? So we're prepared. As opposed to if we had started in the bull market, we're you're exactly right. We'd be pulled in 100 different directions. It's so noisy. Okay, so let's start with some basic definitions. What is risk? If you were to explain to a layperson, what is risk? What is good about risk, and what is bad about risk?
Well, I guess I'd say like risk is kind of, in a way, it's the way to describe like the infinite possibilities of the future. So, it's an opportunity because it's infinite possibilities. So it's infinite possibilities for it to go right, but it's also infinite possibilities for it to go wrong. So, so yeah, I think risk. It's kind of, it's really hard to define actually. Like I never really tried to word it, but yeah, it's it's yeah, I'd say it's really like forward looking. It's about kind of trying to anticipate what's going to happen.
Awesome. And specifically with regards to Aave, why is risk important?
Yeah, so with regards to Aave, risk is quite important because there's actually quite a lot of funds that are deposited in the protocol and trusted. So whatever is on Aave, that's the sums at risk. So that's the sums that may be lost if things go bad, or I mean the sums that may be affected. So the importance of also in a decentralized protocol, the software, the Aave DAO now, it's completely it's permissionless. So if something goes wrong, it's kind of difficult to jump in and interrupt what's going on. So that's typically what happens in traditional finance. So just last month when GameStops went crazy on Robinhood, what did they do? They just paused everything. But the blockchain, it's on 24/7. We can't just stop it. So we have to anticipate the risks in advance and make sure they're understood, they're accounted for, and there is solutions to manage them and mitigate them, and also jump in and resolve them.
Awesome. About a year ago, you've written this pretty spectacular blog post on Medium on the different kinds of risk, how to quantify risk, and I would love for you to just walk us through that and just talk about the different kinds. You've classified the risk as asset risk, and liquidity risk, and solvency risk. So what are these things, and specifically with regards to Aave, what do these things mean?
Yeah, so until now I've kind of given general definitions of risks, and so now if we focus on Aave, and so the way the risk management of Aave is organized, it's the whole protocol is developed around a risk framework, or I mean, the risk framework is developed on top of the protocol, and so it's split in three main parts. So what is important for the protocol, as I mentioned earlier, there is assets under management, and so there's sums at risks, and so what's really key is to maintain the solvency of the protocol. That is that the assets are greater than the liabilities, or that every borrow is secured by more collateral than is borrowed. So that is what is called solvency risk, and so that's also a concept that I was able to bring from the insurance industry, because solvency is also crucial for insurers, for bankers. So it's a common risk within the financial system, and so to assess this solvency risk and to guarantee and to protect from it, there's two main risks I look at Aave. It's the asset risk, and so that are all the risks related to the assets that are listed on Aave. Because when an asset is listed on Aave, I mean, composability within DeFi, it's super powerful because, different communities, different assets share value and build value together, but also with the value comes the risk. So when you compose on top of another protocol, or when you bond the two protocols, well, the risks also come. And so an asset added within Aave can create a systemic risk to the protocol. In particular, actually, the riskiest assets within the protocol are the assets used as collateral, because the collaterals safeguard the solvency, which is really at the heart of the protocol. And so there is a lot of work that goes around listing a new assets on Aave, and there is a lot of variables that need to kind of work together to ensure that it doesn't threaten the rest of the funds.
What is an example of solvency risk, like specific example? Like what happens if a protocol is insolvent? What does that mean?
So if a protocol is insolvent, for example, it would mean that, in the case of Aave, for example, it would mean that the liquidation process didn't work properly. And so, because at the moment, whenever the liabilities and the assets get to the same level, so the way that the model is developed in Aave is that, there is even a buffer. There's Aave doesn't look at the collateralization ratio directly. It looks at the health factor, which plans for a buffer. And so whenever loans get to the health factor, when the value of the borrowed asset increases or the value of the collateral asset decreases and gets to 1, then the liquidation process is open and anyone can liquidate. And if that doesn't happen and the value of the guarantee keeps on going down, eventually what may happen is that there is more liabilities than guarantees. And so that means that the borrower has no incentive to pay back the loan, because actually for him, it's more costly to pay it back than to accept the loss of the collateral. And so effectively that creates a deficit. And so it's the depositors that have to take on that deficit. I mean, that they don't have to, but it's the depositors that suffer from that deficit, because it means there won't be enough tokens for everyone to withdraw from the protocol. And actually, to safeguard the Aave users from that, there is the safety module that was released with the Aave version 2 and the Abenomics. And the safety module is a protection fund that sits in parallel of the Aave liquidity protocol, and that's where at the moment there's 1.5 billion staked in the protocol, in the safety module, and up to 30% of this amount can be used to refinance a deficit within the protocol. So in the case of Aave, if there is a solvency problem, there is also the model is designed in a way that the consequences wouldn't surprise anyone. But in other protocols, it's not clear how this will be dealt with, because it's kind of a Ponzi. So you only realize it's only the last depositors or the last users that will be affected.
So going into this safety module, I'm just asking some clarifying questions because it's very interesting. So the Aave token holders have gone through the safety module and staked their Aave, and then they get a yield for doing that. And a percentage of that is allocated towards paying back the deficit, if there's a deficit. How does that work exactly?
So the way it works exactly, so in the safety module, there's 2 different components. So you can either stake Aave directly, and currently there's a yield of around 6% for staking Aave. And then more recently, we also added, Aave also added a balancer pool to the safety module, which is a 80% Aave, 20% Ethereum balancer pool. And that's also to diversify a bit the assets within the safety module. And so this balancer pool, users can deposit their liquidity on balancer and then stake on the Aave app their liquidity tokens, and they get around 30% APY at the moment, plus the trading fees of the pool, plus some BAL rewards. So there is quite a lot of reward, and that is to offset the risk, because as mentioned, the risk is 30% slashing. So stakers, in case of deficit event, stakers might lose up to 30%. And so these funds would be auctioned within the needs of to refinance the deficit and to make whole the protocol. This is actually a risk Gauntlet is working on, the market risks of Aave. And so far, they've shared a primer on the governance forum. And so far, the market risks themselves, given the risk parameters and the buffers within the system, they're estimated to be pretty low. Such an event as a kind of a nearly, deficit or like kind of liquidation failure event has happened before on Maker. Actually, I think it must have been exactly a year ago or something.
I remember. Yeah.
And so, actually, I think it was only 5 to 10 million. So in terms of the sums that were, and then Maker minted some Maker to refill the protocol. But so, in the safety module at the moment, there's 1.5 billion, 30% can be used to fund the deficit. So that's 500 million. So, in fact, what we've seen until now, it was maybe a 10 million or 10 million deficit. So that would represent quite a small slashing for the stakers.
Okay. And just for my own understanding, where is this APY coming from for the guys who are depositing into or staking into the safety module?
So this APY comes from the governance incentives voted by the Aave community. So these incentives are reviewed quarterly, and it was part of the Avenomics proposal that came out last summer. And so at the moment, there's 550 Aave distributed for each of the components of the safety module. And then the API adjusts depending on how much is staked in each of the components.
Okay, gotcha. And the APY is also in Aave.
So it's Aave. So there is an ecosystem treasury that holds some Aave that are specifically there to help the ecosystem grow and grow safer.
Awesome. Now let's go into your actual role. What would you say is the most challenging aspect of your job?
Well, I would say, now I've been at Aave now for over a year and a half. So I think it's becoming easier every day. But when I arrived at Aave, well, first the protocol wasn't even, the version 1 of the protocol wasn't even live. So everything was built, and DeFi now is much older. But even a year and a half ago, DeFi was just starting. There's, it's an industry where there's zero risk standards. Like everyone has their own procedures. Everyone, has different, levels of precautions, and it's a whole new world also. When you think about risk security in software, you think about audits, but actually that's only one part of the picture. So the challenge is, getting the full picture, not just the code, but also, the economic design of the protocol, the assets, and also the analytics. It's been for me quite a big job to bring myself up to speed with blockchain analytics, because we're very lucky, and especially when we're at a hackathon like that, or based on data and dungeons. Blockchain is the most data-rich industry. Like every single operation is saved on the ledger. So in terms of data, we're very lucky, but at the same time, the data is not that easy to access. And you need to, I'm not a developer by training at all. So, for me, that was all new, even getting API data and things like that. So a big learning curve on that part.
Awesome. So that's a great segue into our next question. Day to day, what kind of software do you use to do your job? Is it like modeling software? Do you use Excel a lot? I would love to know what your stack looks like.
Yes. So I definitely use a lot of Excel. And the reason I love Excel is that, actually my position as a risk manager, the way I see it is, I have to be able to link everyone's work. I have to look at what everyone's doing and combine it. And you guys said for the risks, you really have to take everything into account. And something like Excel, everyone can access it, everyone can use it. I've been also starting to use quite a lot of Google Docs to share community dashboards where people can kind of do small simulations on interest rates or on how much it would cost. Or so yeah, Excel, I think it's an amazing tool. Then I also use quite a lot R, which is a statistical software. It's a free statistical software, and the reason I use it is just because I was using it. I've been using it since university, so it's the one I master the best. And then I use the graph to get some of the data when I need it. But for that it's been a challenge. I needed the developers to help me build a tool to extract, because actually I think that it's not that user friendly. You only get like 15 lines at the time, and then you have to run the queries asset by asset, and so yeah, it's quite tricky. I'm still adapting to the JSON format.
Awesome. Okay. And then let's talk about the industry broadly. What would you say is what is not being taken seriously right now when it comes to risk with other protocols, which you think people should be doing? Like, what's like a major miss? Like, everyone goes to the security audits, right? You have auditors, and you have actually all kinds of modeling. But what is going on? Like, what are people missing?
Well, first, I think it's just not possible to talk about the industry broadly anymore, because actually the industry now is, everyone is at really different levels. So if you look at a protocol like Aave, actually, before Aave, there was ETH land. So this is kind of the third version of the protocol. And so some of the developers, the team, this is their third attempt, and each attempt you learn from your mistakes and you do better each time. And in comparison to Aave, then there's, some other protocols that they just launched, so yeah, I was impressed. Some protocols, the founders are still in university and stuff. So, I think now, there isn't, it's quite ununiform. Like, everyone has kind of the different risk practices. And, I think having a risk team, first of all, I think that was really, forward looking. I think Aave was among the first DeFi protocols to like hire a specific dedicated person. In Maker, they also have a really large risk function. So I think, even having someone who's, dedicated to, analyze the risk and manage the risk, I think that's a very important function. And also, outside observers that are able to compare the protocols and assess the risk. I mean, it's quite crazy, because when you look at some of the, I mean, it's quite hard to look at a neutral ranking. So if you look at how the protocols are ranked, the different risk scores and stuff, some protocols that have had hacks or that have had kind of a malfunction, they're better rated than some other protocols that haven't. So yeah, so I think, there needs to be more comparison work, and also documented work on that looks at the different protocols. And then ideally even kind of create standards, so once you kind of understand what everyone's doing, you can assess which method is better for which circumstances, and slowly iterate from there.
Mm-hmm. There is a startup in the space called Quantlet Networks. Have you heard of them? It's Tarun and his team building simulation packages for economic risk. I don't know.
Absolutely. So we are working with them, and so they've actually published. So they're using their simulation platform on Aave, and so they've done it on Aave version 1, and they've already shared a primer on the forum. And so based on their work, for example, at the launch of version 2, in the version 1, they had identified Wi-Fi as the riskiest asset on the Aave protocol. And so that's due to two things, because they look at two things. So that's due purely to the market risks, but also to the way Wi-Fi is used within the Aave platform. And so based on their feedback, we lowered the risk parameters of Wi-Fi in the version 2. So yeah, and so their report is imminent on the version 2. So at the moment, they're just kind of updating all their simulations And yeah, I'm actually catching it with them just after this call. So
awesome. Say hi to Tarun for me.
Sure.
Now, in terms of comms, how do you communicate your role, the progress, new changes to the landscape, things that have? How do you communicate, progress in your role, milestones, or something new is on the horizon? Is there a cadence that you keep within Aave, within the community and the broader ecosystem? I'd love to know how, if there's that aspect of your role.
Well, I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but so I think basically, I think that, my role is kind of split in different, there's different aspects. So one of my key roles is to make sure that Aave users have all the information they need and understand what's going on the Aave protocol. And so for that, I started this weekly newsletter, Aave Weekly, that I send in the newsletter every Monday and then shared on Twitter. And so that's just one example. But then, with that also comes, building data dashboards, working with different entities that can build Aave dashboards so that information is visible in as many providers as possible. One aspect, I guess a lot of my work is also kind of in the background because, every week, I'm always monitoring the borrows, the positions. If when there is a little crisis, last week, we have to monitor the risks. If there is a large position, for example, there was about a year ago, there was like a famous link shorter that opened a really large loan on Aave and that got liquidated. So, there was like 35 million or I think 30, 40 million. These are quite large amounts. So, you have to monitor that everything is going well. And so that's quite good because actually, now with a year and a half running, we do have a solid ecosystem of liquidators and yeah. So retrospectively, that's something I monitor as well. The liquidators, who are they? How are they liquidating? Also, how long is a position under collateralized, or how long does the health factor stay under one? So there's all this internal monitoring of risks, and yeah. And the rest is also keeping up with the level of progress. So especially now that Aave is fully decentralized, we've had, for example, quite a lot of asset listing requests on the forum, so about 100. So that's actually quite a lot of work. So we're also improving at the moment the listing process and creating a prioritization spreadsheet to help prioritize, because it's not possible to deal with 100 tokens at a time. We have to start somewhere, and so also just going with the flow and trying to keep up with the level of speed at which the protocol is progressing and the community is going.
This Aave Weekly, is that public?
Yeah.
Okay, and how can our listeners access it?
So you can subscribe on aave.com. If you subscribe to the newsletter, you'll automatically get the Aave Weekly and then the monthly newsletter. Otherwise, if you follow me on Twitter, _Bertomeu-Gilles, I share a tweet thread every Tuesday that summarizes Aave Weekly, and the third place where you can find it is on the forum. So on the governance.aave.com, there is a protocol performance and weekly update threads where all the Aave Weekly are posted every week.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna follow that. Any closing thoughts, Alex? Something you'd like to convey to our respective communities?
Yeah, well, I think to conclude, I think as data analysts and as data experts, our role is to grasp the complexity of the data and of the architecture, but make it simple for the users. So, I think, sorry. So, what I want to convey is, the importance of visualizing the data, and like, doing beautiful graphs, nice colors, and yeah, displaying the information in a way that it's not just about information, is also just enjoyable to look at, and you get people's attention, and you want them to be curious to learn more about it.
Okay. Also, I believe you guys are recruiting for the risk team at Aave.
So I think Aave is growing fast. There is quite a lot of recruitment going on, both for developers and also data analysts. So if you enjoy working on the Aave data during the hackathon, and you'd like to continue doing that, get in touch.
Awesome. Great, Alex. So very gracious of you to share your time and share your thoughts with our community. This recording will be put online in a couple of days. We'll see you around. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Ganesh.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.